much of the work that I'm personally interested in is deeper work with the mind, to understand the mind and get familiar with how it operates, and from that understanding of how it operates to learn to use it in a more efficient and effective way to better my own life and circumstances. But I would say in the first place it's really about understanding my own nature, understanding my own patterns, and get a deeper sense of who I truly am on the inside, sort of before the layers of conditioning come into to our being through our upbringing and society. And so yeah, that led me eventually to explore all these different traditions over the past 10 years or so. And initially that attraction was more sort of superficial, in the sense of like, okay, there was some appeal and some intrigue in my system about these stories I would read of um, the yogic tradition, but also the Taoist tradition. And I've been always grasped by that more esoteric side of these traditions, which I still am very fascinated by. So for me, the journey began sort of out of this feeling of like, I would like to explore that, I would like to understand what it is that these traditions are pointing towards, and what if any of it is actually true. So the whole exploration really started to become about getting personal direct experience of these different things that I was reading about. And even in my mind at the time, it was like, if I try these methods and practices and they turn out to be completely ineffective, then at least then I know firsthand that this is not gonna lead to what I thought it was gonna lead. And the interesting thing from my experience, and by no means do I want to say like I've reached some sort of like pinnacle or anything, but I've had experiences and learned certain things through these practices that are confirming that a lot of those stories might be true. I don't know to what extent and to what degree, but also what I've come to see is that my perception of how these realizations and how these states of being would actually be experienced was completely wrong, in a sense. Like, I had made assumptions of how that would feel, and in that sense, some of it is quite different than what I had imagined. Um, so yeah, there was a part of it also with regards to my own perception when I would read about these methods, and then without at that time my embodied understanding, making certain assumptions of what that would feel or be like. And some of that has turned out to be completely different. Now again, I'm not claiming in any way that I've reached some sort of like big attainment or anything. But one of the most important things it continues to teach me, these practices, is to constantly return to the present moment. And with a lot of these practices, like for instance the Taoist systems, we use the physical body to anchor our awareness into the physical body, and with that into the present moment, because we can only feel the physical body in the present moment. So yeah, this constant return to the present moment and the understanding of how the mind tends to pull us away from actually feeling ourselves in the moment and being present with the sensations in the body. And I think, at least from my experience, from what I've gathered so far, a lot of that obviously has to do with certain patterns that we have in our system due to our upbringing and what we've experienced, that we don't truly, or at least the mind doesn't truly want to be present within the body because it feels so uncomfortable. So yeah, I found these practices very helpful, and like I said, I'm really fascinated by the how our mind functions, how it tends to pull us out of our direct experience and creates this almost like artificial creates this artificial layer over our actual life, which is not real. So yeah, and lately, especially in this last year, 2026, things are, for me personally, are shifting in a way I've never experienced before. And obviously, I guess that is the whole purpose of life, to go through these experiences that initiate us into new ways of thinking and new ways of being. And especially in the last half a year, I've been put into a situation in my life where I really get to see these patterns very, very clearly, and how the mind is constantly trying to, like I said, pull me out of the present moment. Sometimes it's because of a fear that pops up, and the mind wanting to create some sort of safety and control over the situation, looking into the future and trying to figure out what would be the best way to do things to get to that future. Sometimes it's about the mind wanting to hold on and cling to a certain identity or pattern within my system, not wanting to let go, because of, again, a fear of losing something, or not living up to something. So yeah, it's very interesting, and ultimately it's more and more that I'm coming to this place where I can really embrace life as the ultimate teacher. And I guess, like, somewhere life is always the teacher in the end, because we don't have control anyway. We only have the illusion of control. But yeah, so it's a very potent and interesting time for me, learning to let go of control, learning to let go of the rigidity of the mind, getting a deeper understanding of how these patterns influence and have influenced my being in the past, and just a continuous practice of returning to the body, returning to the sensations, the feelings, the emotions in the body, and returning to the present moment, and learning to catch the mind whenever it wants to pull me out of that that space, that center. So in a way, it's about embracing the unknown, truly truly accepting it, and following the steps one step at a time, instead of trying to map everything out and structure and plan things, which my mind had quite a strong tendency towards. Um, some of it I had been aware of. Some of it has become more clear over the past half a year. So yeah, ultimately, like I said, I feel like life is inviting to embrace the practice of constantly returning to the present moment and catching ourselves when we drift into thinking, into memories, into scenarios that we create about the future, and realizing that as soon as it happens, and consciously deciding to let go and return to the physical body, the feelings, and the present moment, and just take the next logical step from that centered and balanced state.